Okay, now, again, this video and the next few videos are going to be on bipolar. Because of mental health, I do have to like say that it is a sensitive topic. It is quite controversial, and you know, so if you are that type of person where listening to things like this can be quite a struggle for you, then I understand. It's fine. But I do have to kind of put it up there. I mean, I know bipolar isn't one of the worst of the mental health conditions, but it is a mental health condition, so it is a very sensitive topic, and not everybody wants to hear about it. So yeah. With that being said, I will be using notes because, like I do in all of these types of videos, there's a lot of information and my brain just doesn't retain it. It just doesn't. I'm not that type of YouTuber. I'm not that type of creator. I'm not that type of anything. My brain does not retain that kind of information. I have to use loads of notes. It's why it takes me so long to put videos like this together, because I can't just reel off loads of information. So, tough. I'm a human being, not a robot. Right. Here we go. One thing people need to understand about bipolar is that there are 4 different types, and one of them isn't technically classed as bipolar. Now, I'm going to reel this off in order of how severe the condition is, rather than how I found it. So, for those who have this condition, forgive me if I don't pronounce it right. It's cyclothymia, spelled CYCLTHYMIA. Probably haven't said it right, but for those that have this condition, they'll know how to say it right, and I am sorry if I've said it wrong. It is the most mild of all of the bipolars. It actually isn't considered actually bipolar, but like a precursor to bipolar, if I've learned that right. If the information I found on that is right, those that have this condition are at risk of bipolar if their condition isn't kept under control. So this is like the precursor to bipolar. And so if they have this, the possibility of bipolar is bipolar type 2, which is the mild version of bipolar general, bipolar type 1. Bipolar type 1 is what everybody considers bipolar. So when you hear the word bipolar, that is what everyone sees as bipolar type 1. Now you go, oh yeah, they've got bipolar. And when people say that, it generally is classed as type 1. Okay, so the cyclothymia, then it's bipolar type 2, then bipolar type 1. The most severe of all of it is called a rapid cycling bipolar. I will go into all of this separately because each one comes with its own issues. And although they all kind of have similarities, they each come with their own kind of severities. So This one might take more than 2 or 3, because it's going to take me a while to go through this. Okay. This one might take more than 2 or 3 videos. It's going to take me a while, but it is important, I think, for people to understand. There is a stigma around bipolar, from what I can gather. I know that a lot of people who don't truly understand bipolar feel that those who have it, or before they've been diagnosed, can appear ungrateful or inconsiderate, or, you know, it's very stigmatized as that, and it's not fair and it's not right. You know, you need to understand that these people are not ungrateful for what they have. They're not inconsiderate at all. They just have a mental health condition that makes them struggle with day-to-day things. You know, okay. Bipolar is a mood disorder. Realistically, it is a mental health disorder with mental health illness, which is realistic. It is not classed as a disorder. It is classed, or mental health disorder. It is classed as a mental health illness, which is strange considering the condition. It's where you have mood swings, but they're mood swings to the extreme. So they'll have extreme highs, they'll have extreme lows, and the extreme highs are called manias. And obviously if they're extremely low, it's depression. They do class them as that. Their mood swings as such, they can last from anywhere up to a few weeks to a few months. So it's not something that they can just turn on and off, you know. Once they're in a mood swing, once this mood swing kind of turns itself on, it is there for a while. It can last for a few weeks if they're really lucky. Or if they're really unlucky, it can last for months. And if they're really low, if they're in a depressive state and it's lasting for months, it can have really detrimental effects. The problem is, even if they're in a really high mania, it can also be really detrimental. You know, it's not, oh yeah, they're in a really good mood, that's great. It comes with severe complications and can really impact not just their lives, but everyone around them. It's not a very simple, oh, they're really happy, which is what I thought it was. Honestly, I did. I really did think that if they were in a really high, you know, I always thought that if their highs were just them being really happy. I actually did think that. You know, I knew that their lows were depression, but I thought their highs were just them being really happy. That's how naive I was until I looked into it all. It goes way, way beyond that, and it's actually really dangerous for them and for everyone around them. So the absolute symptoms of just the basics of all bipolars, regardless of where they are and which one they have, out of all of those conditions, bipolar conditions, all of them have at least some of these symptoms. So if they're in a depressive state, they can be sad, hopeless, feel very helpless, and they will be irritable most of the time. We all know what depression is. We all know what it can do to people. We all know that it can give you a lack of energy, take away your interest, give you no, and make you feel like you don't want to deal with anything. It will take away your concentration and, you know, your lack of focus. You'll forget to do things because you just don't want to. You don't have that energy anymore. So you'll just forget things. You know, you have no empathy. None. Because why would you? You know, you're in this state of I don't care. So why would you care about everyone else? You know, the difference with bipolar and most depressives is that they have hallucinations, delusions, and disturbed thoughts and illogical, and they will think illogically. So people with bipolar or cyclothymia, I'm going to stick to that one, will have hallucinations. They'll have this disturbed and illogical thinking, which can cause severe issues. I mean, if you're hallucinating and having these really disturbed thoughts, you can imagine that they'll also end up doing things like attempting suicide, self-harming. Very dangerous, very, very severe. And they will all do it. Doesn't matter which phase you are, doesn't matter which part of the bipolar disorder you've got, you are all in this. Just different stages of it, different severities of it. You will have difficulty sleeping. Most people with depression do. Or, it is a very massive sign that if you're having issues sleeping, you're either sleeping too much or not sleeping enough. It is it isn't easy for them. But this is where I went wrong, when I thought that they were just really happy when they're in their very high stage. When they're in a manic stage, they're very highs, they're manic stages. Not only will they be happy, I was right about that, they'll just be really overjoyed. They will talk so quickly, nobody will be able to keep up with them. Nobody. You'll be constantly trying to figure out what they're trying to say. They'll talk so quick at you, it will be impossible to figure out what they're saying to you. They will have this sense of self-importance, almost rivaling that of a narcissist. Can you imagine that? They will have ideas. They will go off on this tangent where they'll think of new things and brilliant ideas and things they want to do and have to do and things they want to see, and they'll be making all these new plans constantly, and it won't just be one or two things that they'll do in the future, it'll be for now. So they'll want to be doing them right now, and it'll be constant. Problem with all of that is that they get easily distracted. So they'll go, oh, let's do this and let's do that, and then, oh, hang on a minute, let's go over there. And then the second somebody does something they don't quite understand, or they're doing something else, they'll get really easily agitated. So they'll be really easy to annoy. They'll get agitated, really irritated at people around them for no real reason, just because something's in their head and they'll snap. They'll just snap at you for no real reason. Again, even in the highs, even in that manic stage, they'll have delusions, hallucinations, very disturbed and illogical thinking. So even in that manic stage, they will have that. There could still be that niggle of everybody around them where they could still self-harm. They could still go down that route, because they will be doing very dangerous things, because they've got these hallucinations and this very deluded, illogical thinking. It makes them behave in a very risky, very dangerous manner. So there's still this niggle of people around them when they will behave in this manner, that they could still end up committing suicide, or or even in hospital, because they've done something so dangerous, they've injured themselves. because at the end of the day, they'll do something that is completely out of character for them. And it doesn't matter what it is. They could be, when they're in a very normal state, and it does happen. People with bipolar, they have these ups and downs, these manias and these depressions, but they will always have that period of time where they will be completely normal. They will have no issues, there will be no mood swings, they will be completely and utterly normal. They will be themselves. You can have a pleasant, normal conversation, they won't self-harm, they won't try to kill themselves, they won't be illogical, they won't be hallucinating, they won't be making plans left, right and centre, they won't be in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, they won't, or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, sorry, they won't be doing all these things that they would do during these phases. They would be completely and utterly normal. They can take the kids to school, they can pick them up, they can go to doctor's appointments, they can, make the kids tea, they can, they can have a general conversation. They can have a laugh with you. They can do all of those things with no issues whatsoever. And you don't have to worry about them at all. It's only during these periods where you generally have issues. Okay. People with bipolar will always have, people with bipolar, normal bipolar, have maybe 1 to 2 of these cycles of mood swings a year. If they're really lucky, it's every few years. That's how it goes. That's what happens. People with rapid cycling bipolar will have 4 or more of these mood swings a year, with less than a 2-month period of normality in between these cycles, which is why that particular one is so severe, because they don't get much normal time in between each cycle of mood swings. So bipolar in general, they will get cycles of mood swings, and normal people with normal sense, like type 1, type 2, even the cyclothymia, will only end up with 1 or 2 cycles of mood swings a year. If they're really lucky, every few years. It's only those with rapid cycling bipolar that have them 4 or more times a year. They are the ones that are so severe that they cannot lead a normal life at all. They just can't. So yeah, it is very difficult. It is very severe. It is a very inhibiting kind of condition. But it is important that we know this, because they're not just constantly in mood swings. They have 1 to 2 sets of cycling of mood swings a year. And that's how it works. That is how bipolar works. Okay, so they can have periods of complete normality a year, and they can last for a long, they can last for a period of time, and it's fine, and they have no issues. But like I said, those cycles of mood swings can last 4 months, which is why it's such a life-changing condition. It's not just this condition that means, 1 minute you're high, next minute you're low, and then you're normal. It's not. 1 minute you're high and then you're high for a few weeks, then you might be low for a few months, and then you'll be normal for a couple of months, and then you'll go back to being high, then low, or you'll be low for several months, normal for a couple of months, and then high, then low. That can happen. Your bipolar can change like that. It is not easy, and the people around them have to be very, very careful with them. Like I said, there are patterns of behaviour with bipolar. So, okay, with type 2, they have a mild form of mania, the manic highs, and it's called hypermania. So, with these patterns, depending on which type of bipolar you have, you could end up with any kind of pattern. So, obviously, the rapid cycling, you get repeated mood swings, and they will go from high to low really quickly. You can also have a mixed state, that's what they're called, where you experience depression and mania together. And that is when somebody with bipolar will be hyperactive but really depressed at the same time. Now, when I look at this, it's a really strange way to be, but look at it as someone who's like constantly on the move, really kind of busy, really kind of up and about, but you know that they're depressed, you know that they're struggling, they're really unhappy, they're really kind of whatever. Just because they're constantly moving around, constantly. I mean, when someone's hyperactive, you know that they don't sit still, they don't, it's a constant moving, a constant need to do things. But depression stops that. It makes people lethargic, it makes people sad, it makes people do. Those moods don't usually go together. And it must be, I can't imagine having those two in your head all the time for months on end. Can you imagine feeling like you need to move, and feeling like this need to just constantly be doing things when you are feeling so incredibly awful about yourself, about the world, about everything, and especially for someone with bipolar who is prone to self-harm, and and regardless of anything else, both conditions lead to hallucinations and dangerous behaviours and delusional thinking. Can you imagine the effect that will have on someone who is going through that at any one time? When you're in that kind of state, because I couldn't. I can imagine when they're in that kind of cycle, it's when they're most vulnerable, they're most, I can see them being at their most vulnerable in that kind of state. And if they're having cycles like that, they're at the most vulnerable, the most in a state where they need a lot of attention, a lot of help, you know, and it will be really irritating and it will make them really agitated, because who would want people to feel that worried about them and what they're going to do or what they could possibly do in that kind of state of mind when they are in a state where they are super high and super low, having hallucinations, completely deluded thinking, and suicidal and hyperactive. So they'll be completely hyperactive and suicidal at the same time. I can't imagine how that would feel with the hallucinations and that on top of it all. It would make you feel so completely alone in the world. That the people around you would be so concerned. Yeah. I mean, this is a condition that a lot of people end up hospitalised for because of these cycles, because of how they act in these cycles. And I can imagine this is one particular cycle in which people end up hospitalised for. I mean, if I'm wrong, please tell me so in the comments. But this is what I can imagine. Bipolar type 1 is one of the conditions in which people are most hospitalised for, bar obviously rapid cycling. You know, because of how severe their cycles can get. And if they're experiencing mixed cycles like that, I can understand why. But it can't be easy for them. Or for their loved ones. You know. I'm going to leave that here. Tomorrow I will start talking about bipolar type 1 and how it works and treatments and things for it. But yeah, I shall see you tomorrow. Bye.